Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be investigating 3 more themes to help us reach our writing goals for today. If you're doing your NaNoWriMo for this particular month, this can help you create a side story, help inject new life into a character, or perhaps just help you just write 1,600 words like you need to in order to keep yourself on track for the rest of the month. Because the goal of NaNoWriMo for me has always just been to complete the 50,000 words, not necessarily always just hit the 50,000 word narrative that the novel is supposed to be. So if you can't do that, just write 1,600 words. And so I'm using, for our themes, we're going to use the Gift of Virtue Clarity deck, which provides a whole bunch of themes. It's normally used in tarot to help clarify the tarot readings, but it also works really well for creative writing. And so I'm going to get started with our themes for today. The first one is intensity. The second theme that we're going to look at is creativity. And the third theme is adventure. And so we can look at these in a lot of different ways. And so I'm going to look at this from the standpoint of character. So again, one of the things that we can look at is a whole slew of different types of characters. So we've all seen, and a lot of it, well, maybe if you haven't seen it, but there's a movie called Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and you also have Cameron in that movie who has a very high intensity level, right? So when they decide to go on their adventure, his intensity level goes through the roof. So the thing is you're going to want to think about how you can inject a character that might have intensity into your story, or you might want to amp up the intensity of your story altogether. So while I originally read it as a character trait, we can also read it in terms of an energy level. So some themes get played out in scenes where all of a sudden it goes from 0 to 300 in like 3 lines, right? And so start playing with that idea. You know, Game of Thrones has always been good at civil, now I take out the knives, right? That sort of thing. Then don't ever have a wedding banquet, it's over, right? That's how that works. But you can also think about it in terms of adventures, right? So the reason I bring this up is when we talk about Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's all about an adventure of going into downtown Chicago and enjoying the day and just living your life and throwing everything to the wind, right? But we can also look at it as an adventure just as a character trait. Some people really enjoy adventure. And those people are normally not very intense. They aren't really rule-driven. So think about how you can incorporate adventure into your stories, adventure into one of your characters. It could be just a nightmare, it could be a dream, it could be just some weird thing that happens to them while they're sitting at a cafe drinking a mochaccino, trying to figure out what their next moment is they suddenly end up in an adventure, right? And so that brings us to the last one. That person who's sitting at that cafe drinking the mochaccino is suddenly hit with a whole bunch of creativity. And so we also want to acknowledge those people who have those streaks of creativity. So I don't have one that actually ties all these together. I would love to. But the idea is that even if you take Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you have Ferris Bueller who's exercising his creativity to have an adventure, to tear down the intensity of his friend Cameron, who just seems to not want to let go of his high blood pressure. But at the same time, we can also use this creativity as a character trait within a story. So again, we always discount characters. I mean, creativity from the leader is expected. And if your leaders are not creative, they're not leaders, they're managers. And so creative thinking is something that you want to think about, is when you're writing a story, which character actually comes up with the creative result for the conflict that you're currently in. Don't make it the obvious one. If a janitor says, the keys are normally the least amount of whatever, blah, 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 right? So, this janitor just gives you the answer to the question that's going to solve nuclear propulsion issues. That sort of stuff, where you're using people that don't necessarily look like they should have the answers, that they can create this they can use their creativity to create a solution. and put it in the mouths of somebody who you don't expect. Because that is the idea of adventure. Because now the adventure is how do we know, how did this person know this? Now we need to know this. And now that changes the entire intensity is, how did this person who doesn't actually have, the typical degree in what we're looking for, have the answer to the thing that we're looking for? And it could be, I use janitor as a thing, but janitors are very, they know everything. They do. They know. If you ever want to know anything about a building, you go and you talk to the janitorial staff, because if they've been there for a while, they know every crack in the wall. So yes, they're going to be able to solve a problem that has to do with the building before you will. So think of it that way. What is that creativity that can amp up the intensity in your story to create a brand new adventure, right? How do you create that brand new adventure? You might find out that the person who's on the janitorial staff actually has a couple of degrees in physics, but decided that that was not the avenue that this person really wanted to go down to, right? Where a degree and a job don't necessarily match up. In the same way that you might find a jazz singer teaching meteorology. How do you get to those things, right? So that's something to keep in mind is try to stretch everything out, make things more adventurous, amp up the intensity, and really start thinking about how you can inject creativity into the problem solving of the characters of your story. And so with that, I'm going to let this go. Please comment, like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.